while Bethesda figures out how many more platforms a broken Fallout 4 can be released on. Fallout 4 on smart fridges incoming? The rest of the industry has been quietly making some honestly incredible games. We have a detective RPG where conversation is the entire combat system, a tactical RPG where a mutant duck with a crossbow is the most stable person in your squad, a post-apocalypse where the zone itself is the antagonist. And those are just the ones you've probably already heard of. I've spent more hours than I should admit going through every post-apocalyptic RPG worth playing and narrowed it down to the 11 that do what Bethesda forgot how to do. For each one, I'll say exactly what kind of player it's best for, and I'll include both the pros and cons for each game. Let's get into it. Number 1. Kenshi. Best for Fallout fans who want an open world that truly doesn't care if you live or die. If you've ever played a modern open world RPG and thought, why does the game keep telling me what to do? Kenshi is the answer. There's no main quest, there's no marker telling you where to go, no leveling curve that scales enemies to your strength. You start as a single character with maybe one weapon. You're at the bottom of every food chain in this world, and the world will absolutely eat you if you don't figure out how to survive it. The best open worlds don't lead you by the nose. They give you a place to exist and let you figure out the rest. In Kenshi, you might spend 40 hours becoming a swordsman and end up captured by slavers in your 41st. You might build a base, watch a faction war destroy it, and have to rebuild somewhere else. The world is doing things whether you're paying attention or not. No quest markers, no companions reminding you what you're supposed to be doing, no level scaling making sure you can always win. This isn't a new game. Kenshi hit 1.0 back in 2018, but if you haven't played it, you're missing the most uncompromising open-world post-apocalyptic RPG on the market. PC only, mod support is excellent, and Kenshi 2 is in development, so there's no better time to catch up before the sequel arrives. Pros: real player-driven freedom, unlike anything in modern AAA. Faction systems that operate independently of the player. Base building that actually matters because factions will attack what you build. Mod community has spent a decade building on top of it. Cheap when it's on sale, which is often. Cons: PC only, graphics are dated. Combat system takes hours to internalize. Steep learning curve will scare off players who want to be eased in. No handholding means some players will bounce off in the first hour. Number 2. Wasteland 3. Best for Fallout fans who want decisions that actually change the world they're playing in. If you've ever finished a big budget RPG and thought, did any of my choices actually matter? Wasteland 3 is the corrective. This is a tactical turn-based CRPG from Exile, the studio behind the modern revival of the Wasteland series that Fallout was directly inspired by. It's set in a snowed-in post-apocalyptic Colorado where the Rangers are barely keeping civilization together. You play a squad of survivors trying to clean up a region where every faction has different ideas about what order should mean, and where almost every conversation forks the game in a direction you can't take back. Real choice and consequence isn't just letting you say yes or no to the same quest. It's letting you radically reshape what the late game even looks like. Wasteland 3 has companions who will leave your party permanently because of a single decision. It has factions you can ally with, betray, wipe out, or play against each other, and the game keeps track of every one of those moves. There are multiple endings, not the kind where the slideshow changes slightly, but actual endings where the entire final act plays out differently depending on what you did 3 regions ago. Some of your decisions will haunt you halfway through your next playthrough, released in 2020. Available on PC, PS5, Xbox Series, and Switch. The Steel Town and Cult of the Holy Detonation expansions are both worth picking up, and it's been on Game Pass in the past, so it's worth checking if it still is. Pros: branching narrative that actually branches, funny writing that doesn't sand off the rough edges, tactical turn-based combat with real positioning and skill depth. Companions who feel like people, not radiant quest dispensers. Multiple endings that aren't just slideshow variations. Cons: turn-based combat will lose some Fallout fans who came for real-time shooting. Story light if you're skipping dialogue. The Switch port has performance issues. Some of the harder difficulty settings turn into save-scumming exercises. Number 3. Pathologic 2. best for Fallout fans who want an RPG that refuses to apologize for being uncomfortable. Pathologic 2 is the kind of game that doesn't care about you. You play a healer arriving in a remote plague-stricken town with 12 days to figure out what's killing it. The town is dying. Your reputation is built moment by moment. Resources are scarce, food rots, time keeps moving whether you're ready or not. People you didn't save will be dead when you return. The setup sounds bleak, but what makes Pathologic 2 unlike almost anything else is that it commits to the discomfort completely. There's no power fantasy here. Combat is awkward on purpose. Negotiation is your real weapon, and even that frequently fails. The game asks you to fail, to watch people die, to make compromises you wish you didn't have to make, and then to wake up the next in-game day and try again with one less option. The atmosphere is the entire point. Pathologic 2 takes place in a town that feels like a fever dream, half real, half mythological, full of strange masked figures, surreal architecture, and characters who speak in riddles and accusations. The score is one of the best in recent memory, and the writing is some of the most ambitious in any RPG of the last decade. Released in 2019, available on PC, PS4, and Xbox One. The Marble Nest prologue is free if you want to test whether the game's tone is for you before buying. Pros: atmospheric writing that no other RPG comes close to. Survival systems that create real moral weight. Multiple difficulty options if the base experience is too punishing. Strong score and sound design that build dread effectively. Cheap, frequently on sale. Cons: deliberately uncomfortable. Most players bounce off in the first 3 days. Combat is rough, intentionally so. Visually dated compared to AAA contemporaries. Time pressure systems will frustrate completionists. Definitely not for anyone who plays games to relax. Number 4. Mutant Year Zero: Road to Eden. Best for Fallout fans who want post-apocalyptic companions who feel like people instead of quest dispensers. Mutant Year Zero is what happens when you take XCOM combat, drop it into a post-collapse Sweden, and put the squad of mutant survivors in the foreground rather than the cards. You play ducks, an anthropomorphic duck with a crossbow and a sense of humor, plus a rotating crew of mutant companions. A giant boar, a sentient fox, a wolf with anger issues who actually have personalities, real voice acting, and conversations that matter. The combat is the surface layer. What makes Mutant Year Zero distinctive is the writing. Each mission opens with the squad standing around a campfire, arguing about strategy, complaining about each other, telling stories about the old world. You learn the zone, what's left of Scandinavia after some unspecified collapse, through the way these characters talk about it. Their banter does what most exposition dumps can't. It makes you care about the world before the game gives you a single reason to. The mechanical hook is stealth-first XCOM. You sneak before you fight. You pick off isolated enemies with silenced weapons. You position your squad before any shot is fired, and one bad ambush will end a run. It's tighter than full XCOM, which makes individual encounters feel handcrafted rather than procedural. Released in 2018, available on PC, PS4/5, Xbox, and Switch. The Seed of Evil expansion adds more campaign content and is worth picking up if the base game lands. Pros: companion writing that earns its place at the top of the genre, tactical combat that punishes carelessness without being unfair, stealth-first design creates real planning before each fight, atmospheric post-collapse Scandinavia rarely seen in the genre, strong voice acting throughout. Cons: combat is slow compared to real-time RPGs, mission structure is repetitive across a long campaign, permadeath is optional, but the game is much weaker without it. The mutant aesthetic won't land for some players. Number 5. Underrail. Best for Fallout fans who want a CRPG with the deepest character system you've probably never played. Underrail is the post-apocalyptic CRPG nobody told you about, and it's been around since 2015. It's set in a sprawling underground network of stations connected by metro tunnels, in a world where the surface is uninhabitable. You start in one of these stations, take a job for the local militia, and within an hour you're in fights you have no business winning and reading lore that suggests centuries of history beneath the game's surface. The hook is the build depth. Underrail has 14 base attributes, dozens of skills, hundreds of feats, and the game expects you to specialize hard. A pure crossbow stealth build plays nothing like a psi-blasting telekinetic build, which plays nothing like a melee bruiser with a sledgehammer. You can't have all the powers, you have to commit. And the build you commit to will reshape everything from combat to dialogue to which areas of the map are even survivable. The writing is dense and unforgiving. NPCs don't repeat themselves. Quests don't have markers. If you forget what someone told you about a sealed door, that's your problem. Some of the best content is hidden behind player initiative, exploring an unmarked tunnel, talking to the right merchant, paying attention to a passing comment about a faction. It rewards exactly the kind of player Fallout used to be designed for. Released in 2015. The Expedition expansion came out in 2019 and adds a substantial late-game zone, PC only. There's no console version planned. Pros: build depth and variety unmatched by almost any modern CRPG. Combat is turn-based and tactical without being slow. Lore is dense, internally consistent, and rewards close attention. Expedition expansion adds meaningful content, very cheap. Cons: PC only. Visually rough by modern standards. Combat learning curve is brutal at the start. No quest markers will frustrate players who don't take notes. Sparse dialogue tutorials. Number 6. Encased. Best for Fallout fans who want a retro-futurist CRPG that honors the Fallout 1 and 2 design philosophy with modern tools. Encased is set inside a mysterious dome in 1976, an alternate history Cold War where humanity discovered an alien structure called the Dome that grants powers to those who enter and warps everyone else. You play a new arrival on a research mission that goes terribly wrong, and you're left to figure out what happened to the people inside while the dome itself starts changing. The Fallout 1 and 2 DNA is everywhere. Isometric perspective, turn-based combat, real RPG stats with a very interesting style system. The studio calls cogs, multiple character backgrounds that change starting dialogue and faction reception, dialogue choices that branch hard depending on skills and attributes. It's not trying to hide its inspiration, it's trying to be the spiritual successor that Fallout 1 and 2 fans have been waiting for. The Atomic Age aesthetic does a lot of the heavy lifting. Researchers in white coats, bunkers full of mid-century equipment, vending machines selling instant coffee from before the dome, classical music piped through abandoned PA systems. The vibe is specific and committed, and the writing matches it. It's dry, sardonic, occasionally surreal, frequently bleak. Released in 2021, available on PC, PS4/5, Xbox, and Switch. The base game is the full experience, no required expansions. Pros: closest mechanical descendant of Fallout 1 and 2, currently on the market. 5 distinct character backgrounds that change the game significantly, dialogue system with real skill checks and faction reactivity. Atomic Age aesthetic done with conviction, affordable. Cons: combat is slow and can drag in larger encounters. Some quests are over-reliant on backtracking. Voice acting is uneven. Late-game pacing slows down before the climax. The dome's mystery is more interesting than its eventual resolution. Number 7. STALKER: Shadow of Chernobyl. Best for Fallout fans who want atmosphere so thick you can taste it. If you've played Stalker 2, you owe yourself the original. Shadow of Chernobyl came out in 2007, and it's the game that taught the entire post-apocalyptic genre what dread is supposed to feel like. You're a stalker, a kind of irradiated treasure hunter in the Chernobyl exclusion zone where physics has gone wrong, mutants stalk the abandoned villages, and rival factions are killing each other over rumors of artifacts that might or might not exist. The atmosphere is the entire game. There's nothing in modern AAA that comes close to the specific mood Stalker cultivates. The wind through the dead trees, the distant gunfire of factions you'll never meet, the moment your Geiger counter starts clicking and you realize you don't know which direction is safe. The zone feels alive in a way most game worlds spend years trying and failing to manufacture. The combat is brutal and unforgiving. Weapons jam, bullets cost money. A single firefight can drain your medkits and force you to limp home. Survival isn't a system in Stalker, it's the entire texture of the moment-to-moment experience. You're not a hero. You're a guy with a rifle, hoping the next encounter doesn't kill you, released in 2007. There's a complete mod that fixes most of the original's bugs and adds graphical improvements without changing the design, PC only, frequently on sale, often part of bundles with the rest of the trilogy. Pros: atmosphere that the entire genre has been trying to replicate for almost 2 decades, combat that takes weapons and resources seriously, open zone design that rewards exploration without ever holding your hand, mod community has kept it alive for over 15 years, very cheap. Cons: visuals are dated even with mods. Original release is buggy without community patches. Combat is unforgiving in ways some players will find frustrating. Story is told through environmental detail rather than cutscenes, so players who want explicit narrative will struggle. No console version. Number 8. Atom RPG. Best for Fallout fans who want the closest thing to Fallout 1 and 2 anyone has actually shipped. Atom RPG is what you get when a small Russian team grew up loving Fallout 1 and 2 and decided to make their own version set in the post-apocalyptic Soviet Union with all the bleak humor and mechanical depth that implies. You're an agent of the Atom organization sent on a mission that almost immediately goes sideways, and within an hour you're wandering the Wasteland trying to figure out who's killing the agency's operatives and why. The Fallout 1 and 2 DNA is the obvious appeal. Isometric perspective, turn-based combat, a special style stat system, dialogue checks based on skills, multiple endings depending on faction choices. The studio doesn't pretend this is anything other than what it is, a love letter to classic Fallout made by people who clearly believe that style of RPG has more life in it than the genre's current direction would suggest. What makes Atom stand out is the Soviet-coded atmosphere. The setting is sharply specific: collective farms turned into mutant breeding grounds, abandoned KGB facilities, bunker cities run by old party loyalists, mutated wildlife with names borrowed from Russian folklore. The humor is dry and dark in a way American post-apocalyptic games rarely attempt, and the writing, while occasionally stilted in translation, has personality. The genre doesn't have enough of, released in 2018. The Trudograd expansion is functionally a standalone follow-up and is worth playing if the base game clicks, PC, mobile, and Switch. Pros: closest mechanical and tonal successor to Fallout 1 and 2 on the market. Soviet setting is fresh and specific. Trudograd expansion adds substantial content, cheap for the amount of RPG depth you're getting, strong mod support. Cons: translation from Russian is occasionally awkward. Combat is slow and turn-based without modern quality-of-life features. Some quests have rough triggers that can confuse the player. Visuals are dated. PC version is the definitive one. Mobile and Switch ports have limitations. Number 9. The Outer Worlds. Best for Fallout fans who want what Starfield was supposed to be, made years earlier by the studio that made New Vegas. I'm going to be direct about this one, because there's no way to talk about the Outer Worlds, honestly, without naming the elephant in the room. Obsidian made the best Fallout game Bethesda ever published, New Vegas, and then watched Bethesda decide they didn't need Obsidian anymore. 5 years later, Obsidian made The Outer Worlds, a satirical retro-futurist RPG set in a colonial corporate dystopia in deep space, with a kind of reactive dialogue, faction politics, and consequence design that Bethesda has not put into a game since the late 2000s. 4 years after that, Bethesda released Starfield. The comparison is what it is. The Outer Worlds isn't perfect. The 2 main planet zones are smaller than the marketing suggested, and the second half of the game feels rushed. But the things it gets right, companions with real opinions about what you're doing, dialogue choices that meaningfully change faction relationships, a satirical setting that has actual point of view about corporate capitalism, are the things AAA RPGs have been getting wrong for a decade. It plays like a love letter to what RPGs used to be allowed to be, released in 2019. The Spacer's Choice Edition is the definitive version with all DLC included, available on PC, PS4/5, Xbox, and Switch. Pros: reactive dialogue that responds to skills, factions, and prior choices. Companion writing as good as anything in the genre, satirical world building with a clear point of view, multiple meaningful endings, Smaller scope is a strength. Every zone is handcrafted instead of procedurally padded. Cons, second half feels rushed compared to the first. Two main planet zones are smaller than expected. Combat is functional rather than exceptional. Companion permadeath has been criticized as toothless. The Spacer's Choice edition had performance issues at launch and isn't fully patched. Number 10. Caves of Qud. Best for Fallout fans who want a post-apocalyptic world, stranger than anything else on this list. Caves of Qud is the most ambitious world building in any post-apocalyptic RPG, and it's also a roguelike with ASCII graphics, which means most people who would love it never give it a chance. You're a mutant or truekin, a genetically pure human born into a far future world where the old AI civilizations have fallen. The deserts are full of crystalline monsters, and ancient ruins still hold technology nobody alive remembers how to use. You start in a small village, take a quest, and within a few hours you're inside a tomb, arguing with a sentient plant about the meaning of consciousness. Caves of Qud has been in development for over 15 years and hit 1.0 in 2024. The result is a world with absurd depth, historical events that affect the present, generations of mutated factions with their own languages and customs, sentient species that range from cybernetic insects to talking trees, to one-of-a-kind characters who appear procedurally in every playthrough but are remembered when you encounter them again. There is more lore in this game than in most published fantasy series. The mechanics live up to the world building. Character creation includes hundreds of mutations and cybernetic implants, dozens of skill trees, multiple factions with distinct philosophies, and a world that changes between runs in ways that make replays feel new. The combat is turn-based and brutal. Death is permanent in the default mode, though there are non-permadeath options for newer players. Released in early access for years, 1.0 launched in December 2024. PC and console. There's a free demo on Steam if the visual style is the thing stopping you from trying it. Pros: world-building depth that rivals anything in the genre or in published sci-fi. Character build variety is essentially infinite. Modding community has produced extensive content. Procedural world ensures replayability. Sentient plants will hold philosophical debates with you. Cons: ASCII graphics are a hard sell. Most players bounce in the first 10 minutes. Steep mechanical learning curve. Combat depth requires significant time investment to appreciate. Not a game you can casually pick up for short sessions. Number 11. Disco Elysium. Best for Fallout fans who want an RPG that proves the genre can still be ambitious about something other than scale. I want to end on this one, because Disco Elysium is the game that should have changed what we expect from RPGs, and it hasn't. You play a detective in the post-collapse city of Revicol on the morning after a bender so severe you can't remember your own name. You stumble out into a city still healing from a failed communist revolution, take a murder case you're profoundly unequipped to solve, and the entire game unfolds through dialogue, internal monologue, and a strange psychological war happening between the 24 named personality traits inside your own head. There's no combat in Disco Elysium. The combat is conversation. With witnesses, with suspects, with the parts of your own brain that won't shut up. You can fail at almost every check the game offers, and failures often lead to better content than successes. Your character can be a self-destructive disaster, a left-wing intellectual, a fascist reactionary, a paranoid mystic, or all of these at once. The game tracks every one of these performances and reacts to them throughout. There has not been an RPG with this much actual reactivity since Planescape Torment, and Disco Elysium might be the better written game. The reason it belongs as the closer of this list is what it represents. This is a small RPG, made by a small Estonian studio, with no combat system, ASCII-adjacent UI, and writing that demands real attention from the player. It is more replayable than any open-world RPG of the last decade. It is more emotionally affecting than any AAA narrative game of the last decade. It is what's possible when a studio decides the player is smart enough to handle a real game. While Bethesda is still arguing about quest markers and dialogue wheels, proved years ago that you can hand an audience something difficult and they'll meet you there. Released in 2019, the final cut adds full voice acting and is the version to play. Available on PC, PS4/5, Xbox Switch, iOS, and Mac, frequently on sale. Pros: writing is the best in any RPG of the last 15 years. Reactivity system tracks dozens of personality dimensions. Failure states are often better than success states. Soundtrack is among the best in any game. The Final Cut adds essential voice acting at no extra charge for owners of the original. Cons: dialogue heavy in a way some players will not tolerate. Combat is conversational, which won't satisfy players looking for action. The studio behind it has imploded due to legal disputes, so there will likely never be a sequel. Final Cut had bugs at launch on some platforms. Slow start before the main case opens up. And that's it for the list. No prolonged outro. Thank you, and have a great day.